Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Olive Branch Church. My name is Grace, and I'm so happy you're here with us this morning.
Able to hear these kids singing over here. Isn't that awesome? Happy Mother's Day. Ladies, women of influence, moms, thank you so much for influencing and for impressing upon each of us the need to be better. I hope the women in your life make you better, because that's what I have found to be true. Right? You thankful for them? Amen. Guys, it's okay to applaud right now. Yeah. We want to celebrate Mother's Day today by having Megan come up, if she would, at this time. And Megan she's going to be sharing her story, her testimony, and how she has faced some challenges over time and how God has helped her overcome. And I'm going to pray for her that the Lord bless her as she shares. God, thank you for your presence here this morning, for moving among us. Thank you, God, for the message and the story of your grace evident in Megan's life. I pray that you'd be glorified as she shares that, and I pray that it would help provide hope to anyone here who is in that place of just wondering, is everything going to be okay? God, show up strong as you always do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Olive Branch Church. My name is Grace, and I'm so happy you're here with us this morning. If you're new here, please take a minute to fill out our connection card. You can find these in the seat backs in front of you, and at the end of service, you can put them in the offering box in the back of the auditorium. Every Sunday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. is when our youth group meets. This is located in the theater outside of the family entrance. It's for students from 6th to 12th grade, and if you have any questions, you can reach out to our youth director, Sierra Tresca. If you're interested in getting baptized, we have an opportunity to do so on Mother's Day, May 11th. If you have committed to following Christ and you're ready to go public with your faith, please fill out a connection card. Again, this is located on the back of the seat in front of you, and it can let a staff member know that you're ready to take those steps. On May 18th, we have our child dedications. If you're interested in this opportunity or would like to know more information, please fill out a connection card. Just a friendly reminder that our kids camp registration ends on May 26th. This is for grades kindergarten through 6th grade and will begin on June 4th. If you have any more questions about registration, please reach out to Michelle Rose or Lola Brady. We do have a ton of summer groups starting here soon. For more information, you can check out the Next Steps wall. As always, you can stay up to date on any upcoming events by checking out the Next Steps wall, going to our website, or following us for more on social media.
Good morning. Oh, not yet. Good morning. How about another round of applause for the moms? That was kind of wimpy. Yay. Thank you, moms. As Pastor Jeff said, my name is Megan Steininger. Pastor Jeff came to me, I think in January, so it's been a couple months. And he asked me to speak today. I was ironically taking care of our newborn, and he walked up, and I said, well, that's fitting that I need to talk about being a mom as I'm being a mom. I thought about it for a few days. I said yes, but sitting here in front of all of you, I don't really remember why, because this is not my thing. So I'm going to try my best not to read right off my notes, but I make you no promises. I'm not a public speaker. I don't want to be a public speaker. So there's that. Most people would say that I'm kind of outgoing and an extrovert, but actually I tend to side more with the introverts. I took the test, and it's true. So this is kind of not my thing, so here we go. I'll just start with my story. I feel like the story of my life, if you were going to give it a theme, is waiting. It's kind of funny because my family's probably going to giggle. I am not patient at all. I don't like to sit still, and I don't like to wait. I want it now. But God works in funny ways, right? So my name's Megan. Morgan to Dave. Lady with all the kids to Beth. It's whatever. I'm just that girl. I've been coming here to Olive Branch for almost 5 years. I'm married to Nate. He's pretty awesome most of the time. And we have a big blended family. We have 6 kids, and I think there's a picture maybe somewhere. Yeah, I know, aren't they cool? We are literally the yours, mine, and ours family. Our life is chaos 90% of the time, but I think for the most part we love it and wouldn't change it. Our oldest will turn 16 in July, and then Rhett is just 6 months, so we kind of have the whole thing. So we live where I grew up, in the tiny town of Argus, which is basically Akron, a little bit larger. We have a whole stoplight and one K through 12 school, all one building, so yeah. I grew up in what I would call a normal family, kind of that stereotypical you see on commercials. I had a mom, a dad, they had a son and a daughter. That was it. Dad went to work when we were younger. Mom stayed home, did the stuff around the house, raised us, babysat. We kind of joke in our family that normal's just a setting on the dryer, but you get what I'm saying. My parents are still married, 40 years, yay. And as far as I know, it's still going well. So, my childhood and teenage years were what I would just call average. We went to church, which I think then was a lot more common than it is now. I didn't really realize until I was a little bit older that not everyone did that. It was just what we always did. We were raised with rules and discipline. There were consequences. We had to work hard. We had to be honest. Just generally good people, I don't know what happened, but they did what they could with what they were given. So at the time I didn't appreciate the rules and structure, but as an adult it definitely made me a better person, and I'm thankful for it. I don't know if as a kid I actively thought of it, or if I just assumed that this is how life would turn out, that I would be a wife and a mom. That's just what everyone did, right? You grow up playing house and dolls and whatever, and that's just what you think is going to happen for you. You don't give a second thought to, oh, well, maybe it won't. I wanted to be all kinds of other things along the line too, teacher, doctor, I don't know, astronaut, whatever. But the constant that was always there was wife and mom. I just knew I wanted to do it. When I was 17, I would have been like a junior or so in high school. I knew what life was going to be. I had a boyfriend. We were together for a couple years. We were going to graduate, get married, and settle back down and have kids, right where we were raised, He was a year older, went to college before me, and about halfway through my senior year, we just were different, and it ended. So here I was getting ready to graduate from high school, and I didn't really have a clue where I was going. In hindsight, I suppose most teenagers, especially us girls, think that our high school relationships will last forever. We're going to graduate, life will be great and easy, I'll be independent, and it's going to be so fantastic. Teenagers in the room, that's not true. That's not how life goes sometimes. About a year into college, I met my oldest son, Cameron's dad. Looking back, it probably wasn't a relationship I should have pursued. There were lots of warning signs and things that nagged at me the whole time. People around me tried to steer me in a different direction, but of course I was, 18. I knew better, so I didn't listen, He was different. He was special and misunderstood, right? Everything that felt wrong was excusable. I could come up with a reason why it was going to be fine. But I think deep down I knew that always we weren't a good match. A few short months after we got together, I was pregnant. Without going into too much detail, I'll just say that his initial response was less than supportive. He was supposed to be a good Christian guy, but here he was telling me to do things I didn't believe in. We stayed together until a few weeks after our son was born, and honestly, I think I went through most of the pregnancy feeling pretty alone as far as having a supportive partner. Of course, we were 18 and 19, so we were very young. At the time, I was a year and a half into college. I'd been studying to be an x-ray tech, but had changed to nursing as my major. I was due in July, so it kind of worked out okay. It was going to be a break from school. And I had planned to have him the beginning of July and go back to school in August to start the nursing program. To say it wasn't an easy pregnancy is taking it kind of light. My mom will tell people the story about Thanksgiving, where I walked into the house, clearly very morning sick, and my boyfriend followed me with a bucket, because that's how it went. So, I was 19, I was a first-time mom, I was young. I had great support from family and friends, but there was just so much that I didn't know because I hadn't done it before. All I knew, really, from the moment I found out was that the life inside of me I loved, and that somehow it was going to be fine. After all, this was all I had wanted, to be a mom. I played with dolls. I was kind of a junior mom to all the kids my mom babysat, and I always wanted my own. It wasn't how I planned. It wasn't ideal, but I was going to be a mom, and I was excited for that. I was also adamantly against the other options that were hinted and suggested to me. I stand pretty firm in my belief that each and every life, from conception to natural death, has a purpose and a plan. In July of 2009, I became a mom. The birth itself was anything but smooth, but he was here and we were both safe. Instantly, love. When Cameron was about 6 weeks old, the plan was for me to go back to nursing school. And that was kind of the plan that my boyfriend and I, you're going to go back to school because we need you to finish school so that you can, provide for our family. Anyone that's been through nursing school understands what a giant task that is and what it demands. Cameron was not a planned C-section, so in addition to being a new young mom, I was recovering from major surgery, and I'd never done anything like it before. I made it about a week into the new school semester and realized I just couldn't do it. I couldn't have a newborn, recover from surgery, and keep up with the demands of nursing school. So I decided I was setting myself up for failure and I needed to take a semester off. My boyfriend and I at the time both worked minimum wage jobs at a restaurant, and I was going to have to take a ton of time off for school, and I didn't think I was going to be successful if I went back right away. He was less than thrilled with my decision, and it was kind of the last straw for us. The night that I decided school needed to take a break was the night I became a single mom. Sidebar, to thank God for my parents. Here I came, 20 years old now with a newborn on my hip, moving back in with whatever I could pack in a bag. I'm not sure I ever even really asked if I could. I just kind of called and showed up and said, here we are. We're going to live with you for a while. Without them, though, Cameron and I are not here today, for sure. For all intents and purposes, they were the dad in those early years when it takes two parents to survive. Being young and broke, I found myself suddenly in need of many things because half of what I had belonged to someone else. So my parents graciously sent me out to get whatever we needed, knowing I was never going to pay them back. We were able to live with them for 6 years while I finished nursing school and saved up for Cam and I to get out on our own with a solid start. When he was 6, we finally moved out on our own. Thinking back to when I left the hospital with Cameron, one of the nurses commented to his dad and I about seeing us in the future, and she said, I just know we're going to see you in the future. You're going to have more kids. I just know it. It never really dawned on me in that moment that I might not get the chance to have more kids, and if I did, it might be a long time. I had no clue how long I'd be waiting for those prayers to be answered, but I clung to the promise of Jeremiah 29:11, praying that somehow my hope wasn't for nothing. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you future and a hope." That future was looking kind of grim, but I just hoped and prayed that one day it would look better. Just before Cameron turned 3, I finished nursing school and passed my boards, yay. I started working as a nurse full-time, and I saved for a couple years so that Cameron and I could get our own place. When he was 6, we finally were able to move into our simple but newly built house, and we still live there now. In 2017, I had started working at the hospital where I still work. Cameron was 8 now, and life was pretty good. I still wrestled with being single, wondering if God had forgotten me or hadn't heard me, or my worst fear, maybe the plan is for me to just be single. Maybe the future didn't include a husband and more kids. Then I met Billy. We were an instant match. He had 2 kids, close in age to Cameron, and we clicked right away with each other's family. From the beginning, it felt right. 6 months later, we were engaged and we started planning a wedding for the following year. But 6 months before our wedding date, he decided it was over. He left for work one day and I never saw him again. I can't fully explain the pain and anguish that followed. The following weeks and months are probably some of the darkest I've had. I remember not being sure how I would survive. I remember feeling like the shell of a person just going through the motions. When I had accepted his proposal, I had meant it. I was prepared to have a marriage with this guy. The ups and downs, the good times and bad. I was agreeing to all of it. That's what accepting an engagement meant to me. I've never been divorced, but I imagine the feelings are similar, such as sacred promise being broken and not really having a say in it. Thanks to the people around me, I sought professional help. It's pretty humbling to be kind of escorted to the doctor by your mom and best friend because they want what's best for you and they know you won't do it on your own. But my dad and I made the best of it, and on what would have been my wedding day, we went to the Cincinnati Reds and had a cool experience, so ended up fine. After Billy, I really got to a point in my life where I just accepted that single life was what was meant for me. I had a really special aunt in my life who never married, never had kids, and she was one of the best people, such a heart for God, and I thought, okay, well, this is just what we're going to do with our life. I've been praying for a husband and more kids since Cameron was born, really, and at this point, God either didn't hear me, the answer was no, or I just had misinterpreted the callings that I thought I had. In 2020, the world changed. As if it wasn't hard enough already to date, we can't be within 6 feet of each other. So, sidebar, does anyone know how hard it is to date these days outside of a pandemic? I mean, it's ridiculous. Where are you supposed to meet people? You know, work is not a great idea. I work with mostly women, so that's out. Bars, I don't feel like you're going to meet good quality people there, so pass. And online is just a little, paying to date is just weird. I don't know. I had tried it, but I'm not doing the subscription thing, I had taken a break from dating in general. I thought, we're just done. And Facebook had recently done like a dating page or whatever, and I thought, okay, fine, we'll try it one more time. I made a profile on a Tuesday night, and later that night I get a message from this good-looking bearded dude, and there are 4 cute kids in the picture with him, and I thought, oh, he's such a cool uncle. This is awesome. He's not the uncle. They're my kids now, so. When I say it was instant with Nate, it was instant with Nate. I told my best friend 2 days after we had started talking, I hadn't even met him yet. He could have been a creeper for all I knew. I said, I feel like he's it. We hadn't met yet. We'd talked maybe on the phone. I don't remember, a FaceTime or call or two. And I just remember, I think I even cried before I met him. I just had such a peace about it. And it could have only come from one place. I can't even put it into words, but if you've ever felt it, you know what I'm talking about. It was just right, and I knew it was going to be right. So those sweet-looking kids are mine now. But I don't think once I figured out they were his that ever wavered anything in my mind. I knew I wanted more kids, right? Here they were, like a ready-made family. Our first date, which I would hardly even call a date because it was a pandemic and we have 5 kids, right? So we went for a walk. Woo. We had deeper conversation than ever, and our intentions were clear. We were looking for a partner, not just fun and games. 2 months later, we were engaged, and 2 months after that, we were married. So for those not doing the math, that is 4 months from the time we met to the time we married, almost to the day. We're still here 4.5 years later, and I can say with confidence, blending a family is not for the weak. Yeah, exactly. We were not oblivious to the fact that it would be hard. All of us, our kids included, brought trauma and baggage from past hurts into our new family. Our now 6 kids have totally different personalities, different strengths, different interests, different weaknesses and faults. Each of them challenges us in a different way as parents. We hope that it's on different days, but not always. Some days it's the disobedience, some days it's how they treat each other. Most days it's their attitudes and mouths. Lord, help the mouths. Someday my kids leave me exhausted. I love them so much, but hear me out. There's a lot of days they're just difficult. His stubbornness is a thorn in my side. She's quick to act and slow to think about consequences. He pushes me to the limit. There are nights when I can feel the tears well up in my eyes and I'm convinced I'm doing it all wrong. They fight hard and never back down, but for the record, neither do I. I wonder sometimes how much more I can take. Am I strong enough to withstand the storm? I worry about the adults they're going to become. And I spend a lot of time praying or thinking out loud and just hoping God hears it. My kids are great kids. They're so smart and have the biggest hearts. They love fierce and deep. They think big and they dream bigger. I read an article a few years ago. It was just Cameron and I think it was right before I met Nate, actually. And the point of it is aimed at moms of boys, but there's a lot of takeaways if you have girls too. And the article was called Raising Peter. And it talks about the life of Peter, and the bottom line is, what if I'm raising a Peter? What if God doesn't need my child to be soft, but solid? What if the exact things that drive me crazy are the things that God needs them to have to fulfill his purpose for their life? Peter is one of the more well-known disciples, and he didn't start out doing great things. He was often seen as harsh and impulsive and a rebel of sorts. He was the first to speak, the first to act, and the last to think about the consequences. Sounds familiar, right? Jesus was ever patient and guided Peter in the right direction. Jesus knew Peter's future and that people would follow Peter even though the road was hard. Jesus speaks to Peter softer and more often than any other disciple. Sometimes it's in praise, other times it's in blame. Jesus spoke to Peter with words of approval and praise, but didn't often speak to the others that way. At the same time, though, sometimes in the same breath, Jesus said harder things to Peter than the other 11, with the exception of Judas. Peter eventually learned to think before he spoke. Peter had a faith like no other. He was able to step out in great faith and do great things. He became the solid foundation for the early church. So what if the weaknesses and faults I find with each of my children will someday solidify them into the strong and mighty rock Jesus needs them to be? In total, I lived the single mom life for 11 and a half years. Not to say I didn't have help, I did, but for the most part, it was Cameron and me. I didn't have a partner for something that was very clearly intended for two people to do together. I went through many mental battles over being single and single motherhood. I felt like I'd tried everything. I prayed, I searched, I waited, I quit searching, I quit praying, I cried, etc. Anything to try, I'll try it. I should say, as a teenager, young adult, all I wanted to be was like other girls. You know, they had guys' attention, so why didn't I? Am I not pretty enough? Am I too kind of conservative in my values? Am I too much of a good girl? Am I too weird? Do I need to lose weight? The list goes on, and it's something I've overthought and tortured myself with for years, before and after becoming a mom. I guess I kind of spent some time blaming myself for being a single mom and for not giving my child the life he deserved. I wondered if God heard me, and does he care? If he heard me, why isn't he answering me? What if silence is the answer? Do I care if he hears me? Do I care if he cares? I know I'm not the only one that questions God's character when times get hard. I went back and forth between praying constantly and questioning if prayer even worked. Finally, my prayer was answered in a way that could have only been orchestrated by one person. Now I question if God knew what he was doing answering my prayer the way he did. I asked for a husband and more kids, but I did not specify how many kids could come along with the husband or how big our family would actually be. I didn't specify that I wanted a family with less baggage or less issues. And then I feel guilty for questioning the blessings I have. A lot of days, Nate and I look at each other and talk about all the ways we feel like we're failing. This kid got in trouble for mouthing off. That kid lied. The other one has an attitude. He said, she said all day, every day. We raised them better than that, right? I mean, we taught them that these things were not okay. They do it anyway, so we must be doing something wrong. And that's just the normal kid stuff. Every parent in this room has experienced those things. Add in the baggage that comes with remarriage and split parenting time, and you'll think you failed in ways you didn't even know were possible. We question whether we were cut out for this. How could God have known how hard this season would be but bless us with it anyway. Who would do that? Truth is, we're not failures as parents. Are we perfect? No. And we tell our kids that regularly. I've made mistakes, and I'll make many more, I'm sure. I've apologized when I needed to, and I've tried to handle it different next time. But the struggle we have as parents, and the struggle I have as a mom, is not a surprise to God, not even a little. Before any of us existed, He knew that at this very moment I would be sitting here talking to all of you. He knew that through all of the hardships and battles, I would have a testimony that might help someone else. We were made for this, not just for marriage and motherhood, but this specific marriage with this specific group of kids, this specific husband, for these exact children, both natural and bonus. And for this exact time in the world, it's not a surprise to Him that the world is a mess and that we would be here for it. He knew what baggage and hang-ups we would have. Esther 4:14, which always sends me back to VeggieTales. Anybody else? Talks about being made for just a time as this. We were made with intention for such a time as this. Queen Esther was married to a king whose right-hand man wanted to eliminate the Jews, and that was her people. The king didn't know that his queen was a Jew. She was reminded by a cousin that instead of backing down in fear, maybe she became queen so she could save her people. Maybe life doesn't look like you thought it would. Maybe you faced divorce, single motherhood, fatherhood. Maybe you've lost a loved one earlier than you thought you could handle. Maybe your job or career looks different than what you expected. God is not surprised. We may not know this side of heaven, but He's not surprised, and it's not an accident. Guess what? We don't have to understand. It's very frustrating, but it's true. Your life is the way it is and looks the way it does with intention. Yes, bad things happen, and God doesn't like them either. He doesn't cause them, He allows them to happen. His heart breaks right along with ours, and He does great work in the middle of a mess. A while back, I posted something on Facebook that's worth repeating. If you have something on your heart that you've asked God to handle, but it doesn't seem like He's answered you, ask Him again. If you got an answer and it wasn't the one you wanted, I can't really help you. Step back, look at the situation. Maybe your heart's not right about it. Don't make excuses. I've already asked 1,000,000 times. I asked this way, I asked that way. Do it again. Ask for the 1,000,000th and first time. My life is living proof that He answers prayer. Not the way I want, but the way He needs. I prayed for 15 years for the baby that would be Rhett. 11 years for Nate. I prayed all kinds of prayers. I was nice. I was angry. I asked questions. I made demands. He could have said no or told me I didn't deserve it. I certainly didn't earn it. But God is gracious and He is good. He heard and He answered. So today, on a special day just for us moms, I want to remind all the moms out there that He's here with you in the hard. Every tear you cry, every ache in your heart, He hasn't left you. He hasn't forgotten you. His hurt, your hurt hurts Him too. And He's working in the waiting, I promise. Somehow, someday, in His way, He'll use it for good.